And welcome back to the Book and Life podcast. Today we have an exceptional newcomer to our market, and this book just blew me away. Like, I started reading it the other night and I thought, oh my gosh, like, I just cannot wait to talk to this person and just dive in and just go for it. I will apologize to him now because I will probably butcher his name and I hope he doesn't hold that against me, but I will try my best. But before we talk to this exceptional individual, I want to share with you a very quick advert from Marianne Curley, and it's for her Time Guardian series, and it's book 4, and it's called The Shadow. The battle is over, the war is won, the prophecy complete, but life can't just pick up where it left off for Ethan. Struggling to cope with tragic loss, at odds with friends in the Guard, he finds himself adrift, jumping at the shadows and sensing someone who can't possibly be there. Blaming herself for the goddess Lathena's death, Giselle swears revenge and vilify the immortals' plan for world domination. But Giselle hadn't planned on love, and that leaves her with an unbearable choice. Should she follow her heart or the strings of a goddess, short on praise but high on expectation, who continues to pull her from the grave? As the Guard and the Order battle through the past and into an impossible future, darkness lurks around every corner. The fight for the world's survival rests with just one. Is it friend or foe? Who stands in the shadow? A quick reminder that The Price of Freedom by Rosemary Rowan, which is her Roman British crime series, is having a large donation from her royalties given to the Ukraine crisis, and her agent has donated her entire commission. With that being said, let's get on to some happier things and some happier thoughts, because it's that beautiful time of day. So I want to introduce you to Kia Wolden. Oh, please tell me I said that right.
Yep, Kia Wolden.
Wolden. Okay, I was close. I always feel so bad because I can never get people's names right.
You did well.
I should have asked you that before I started, so it's my own fault. But please, I wanted to share this book with everyone because Made of Folded Paper it made me smile. It made me have tears of joy kind of came up into my eyes, because it is just that kind of story that I wish that I could have read years ago and to acquaint myself with, and just to be able to escape into it and fall in love with it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about it, and then maybe you could tell us what inspired you to write this and what inspired you to dive into these topics.
Sure. So Made of Folded Paper is a queer contemporary romance book. It's about a small town boy from Iowa who goes to college in Michigan, where his peers nickname him Iowa. And he ends up joining a close-knit friend group and kind of forming different connections with his 3 new friends over time. So his 3 friends. There's L.A., the actor who always wants to be the center of attention. There's Cynic, the jaded rich boy from the East Coast. And there's Charlie, who's very mysterious and wants nothing to do with Iowa at first. And Iowa becomes fascinated with Charlie in a way that he can't really explain at first. But when Charlie eventually opens up to him, it turns into romance. And the story covers 2 years of their lives together in college as they navigate romantic entanglements, jealousy, heartbreak, and tragedy, and each try to find their place in the world.
I just love that.
Yeah. So I wrote this story because I'm transgender, and as a queer transgender man, I really wanted to put something out there that really represents me and can introduce people to my lifestyle. And sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought.
No, it's okay. Don't worry about it. It's very difficult when, you're doing your very first promotion of something, and it's so meaningful what you're talking about, and I can just only imagine just the feeling that you must be feeling to take on this journey, and to, that takes so much confidence and courage and pride. We all are in total awe of you and
Thank you.
appreciate what you're giving us. I don't think words could cover it. So take your time, and just know that we all love you here, and you are in the safest space, and we cannot wait to read the story and learn about Iowa and all the things that he's going to go through. So is there something that you're writing right now that you're excited about that you want to share with us?
Yeah, actually, I'm just finishing up a fantasy novel that I've been working on and off for about 5 years.
That sounds cool. Can you tell us a little bit more,
Yeah,
or is
called...
it like super secret?
No, it's not a secret. It's called The Warden's Path. So it's a fantasy novel. It's set in a realm where nomadic clans fight magical wars over territory. And the main character is chosen as a child to serve his clan as warden, meaning he's responsible for controlling his clan's magus. And
Yeah.
magi are people who possess destructive power and are kind of used as weapons against other clans. And they're basically thought of as like mindless monsters. But as the main character gets to know his magus, he finds out that that's not the case. And the two of them have a very complicated relationship that eventually turns romantic. And ultimately, they have to choose between living a peaceful life together and going to war to save their clan. And it's the first installment in a series, so I hope it will be a trilogy.
It sounds amazing, and I certainly will be looking out for that. So yeah, that sounds awesome. So let's talk a little bit about books, because as writers, a part of our lifestyle is we have to actually read a lot, and that's so that we can understand the changes in techniques and the changes in writing styles and how our industry is progressing. So what is the book that you've read most recently that stuck with you the most?
I would say The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. Have you read it?
Ooh, why do you think that book stuck with you?
Well, I read her book, The Secret History, years ago, and it made a really big impact on me, but I didn't get around to reading The Goldfinch until this year. Both of them are really life-changing books. She has this amazing gift for character development. Like, her characters are more real than real people, and they
Yeah,
stick with you forever. And she also has
that
this ability to spin these like elaborate tapestries of relationships between characters, which is what I look for most in a book.
yeah, that
So
sounds amazing.
yeah, so right now I would describe The Goldfinch as my favorite book. And I
Well,
really
I
hope to see
definitely
something
will
new
be
from
looking
Donna
out for
Tartt
that
soon.
one. It was so weird because when I knew you were coming on, I had like a whole list of books that I was going to recommend you, because I've had such an amazing opportunity to meet some amazing people on my kind of like my journey as well. Like, and one of the most funniest stories I ever read was the Morgan Vampire series by Rachel Kane, because it's literally the funniest series, just with like, you've got this crazy vampire who has to wear vampire bunny slippers to go and do physics, because if he doesn't have his slippers, it's like he doesn't have his superpower of mental stability. And she really, in a kind of great way, she teaches inclusivity, and she teaches us about not judging things by like how they appear. And she really kind of tackles the idea of, don't bully someone just because you don't like where they came from, or the fact they're new, or the fact that, you don't know them. Always get them an opportunity, because you never know who's going to end up saving your life from a really random kind of obstacle-filled world. And I liked it, and I loved that there was, it's basically a town in the desert, and there's this university that this young girl goes to, and she's never left home before, and she's a little young, and she's smart, and a bit naive, and she ends up entangled in this web of vampire hierarchy, and she can't leave the town because this town's got this very physics bound boundary system that doesn't let her leave. And it's so much fun, and it's just a really easy series to read. So I just thought, I kind of thought you'd appreciate the humor of it, and I could see you kind of chuckling with some of
Yeah, I'm definitely a
the
big fan
jokes.
of vampires. I love What We Do in the Shadows, so
Yeah,
anything silly
so
with vampires sounds great to me.
the other series that she did was a kind of the librarian series, and that's really awesome because imagine if like books controlled the world, like power controlled the world, and libraries had all the knowledge and all the power. And it's about this group of people that sort of fight that kind of system and the corruption, and it's this very awkward group of totally different five people who go on this adventure to return the knowledge to everyone and make it accessible for everybody. And um, I love it, and I love how they use books as the center of this huge world. And I love how it has a dystopian feel to it, but it's not really dystopian. So I thought those were two good series that I could see you kind of curled up in the sun with your shades on and reading away, just
Yeah,
enjoying a
that's how I
really good
plan to
book.
spend the
So
summer. So
there you go. So yeah. I always like to share. Like that's the problem with this show is you end up going home with like 50 recommendations, and I have 50 recommendations, and my husband's like, seriously, our house cannot fit any more books in here, Crystal. Stop. I think he's scared that like our next house will just be built out of books or something.
that would be amazing
I actually think so too.
if
I
every
thought so
wall was just a
too.
bookcase.
Yeah, I would love that. Like a world where your houses are books and you can like read them by touching them. That would be pretty awesome.
Yeah, I
So
sometimes
if you
get
had
really
infinite,
overwhelmed by just knowing how many books are out there in the world and that I can
oh
never read them all.
yeah, I did too. When I first started this journey, like I started realizing just like how many are out there and like all the different authors who have these amazing stories to tell. I just was completely overwhelmed. But like my legacy is I want to give that to my children. I want them to be able to pick and choose what universes they get to visit and just give them the best quality of books out there and letting them choose their own paths and like their own adventures. And yeah, I hope I've left them a good legacy and not one where they're like, Mom, really? Kind of style, which I think we all kind of go through. So if you had infinite time and you could just sit and read for enjoyment, you get to have one author and one series. Who would be the author and what series would you pick? Oh, and obviously why.
I would pick the Old Kingdom series by Garth Nix. It was
Ooh,
one of my favorite series as a kid, and it'll always be a comfort series for me. I actually reread it recently when I was going through kind of a hard time this year, and it really
yeah.
helped me get back into the creative flow. I always kind of feel bad about rereading books because there's so many new books out there waiting to be discovered. But this series just brings me so much joy. I don't think I'll ever put it down for too long. And
But that's the great thing. Like, you've given somebody a really good book if it's something that they go back to. And it
yeah,
gives them that comfort and it gives them that guidance. And I think that's what every author wants to hear. That's what makes us all emotional about what we do. Um, and I don't ever feel guilty about that because it's what makes you happy and what makes you smile. That's you're doing the author probably the best justice possible by just reading something that you love. So yeah, never feel guilty about that, ever.
I definitely need new copies of the series though, because they're literally falling apart.
Oh, I know that feeling. I did that to I've got one book called The Horse Whisperer, and I think I read it so many times, like the pages actually were falling out.
Yep.
And my hubby realized, and he went and brought me a brand new copy. But there's nothing like the old copy. But I had to put it in the bin the other day because like all the pages were just gone. And I was kind of sad, but yeah, you sometimes you just need a new copy, but story never changes and
Exactly.
still holds that magic. So don't I was like that. Is there an author, past and present, who's influenced, inspired you, and made you excited about both reading and writing? And if so, what was the thing that made you write because of what they've produced and what they've given you?
Yeah, I would say the authors who's most inspired me is Anne Rice.
Ooh, okay. I'm intrigued with this.
So I first read Interview with the Vampire when I was like 12, and it really just opened up a whole new world for me. So I immediately devoured the rest of the Vampire Chronicles and the Mayfair Chronicles, none of which were age appropriate.
No, I was just thinking that. I'm like, and I thought I was bad.
Yeah, I learned all sorts of things.
Yeah, I bet your mom was like, oops.
Yeah, I sometimes joke that Anne Rice turned me gay.
Hey, I've heard worse things. And she takes that as a badge of honor, so I don't think she'll be insulted with that at all. I love the fact that you're somebody that has read her and has enjoyed her. And if you're looking for somebody like her, that's just as good and just as inspiring, you should try Shirley Kennan. She has a exceptional vampire series, and she's gone through so much in her personal life that she's someone that like all of us truly admire because she got out of awful situation and she's making a fantastic life for herself, and she'll be on the show in a couple of weeks. So
cool.
yeah, so it's kind of, you're sharing the space with some of the best writers in the world here. So yeah, enjoy yourself. But yeah, check her out. Her books are really incredible for just if you want a really good vampire experience. But she goes into other areas. She goes into demons and angels and all other sorts of gods and shapeshifters, and yeah, she doesn't stick to one thing. So
yeah, that sounds
it's
amazing.
a long series though. It's a long commitment. It's
Good.
like she's like 32, 34 books. So yeah, but you should give her a try. She's pretty awesome.
I will for sure.
You might also have a laugh at some of the very strange things that the guys say because they're a bit dated. When you go to a bookshop or a bookstore online, where do you naturally gravitate to? Where do you find yourself in the genre sections? Like, what genre do you go to?
Definitely fantasy and sci-fi. I spent most of my childhood off in fantasy worlds, and it's still my escape. I'm definitely the most drawn to queer fantasy and sci-fi, which is becoming a lot more common now. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
It's definitely dangerous for me to go to bookstores nowadays because there are so many new books just calling my name.
And you feel like you need to just grab them all.
Yes. Build a house out of them.
I love that idea. And if you're ever just looking for something like, and you can't decide what book to go for, there is actually a great book company, two book companies called Very Loot and Elkrate, and they can send you really awesome books that are fantasy based or queer fantasy based. And that's just monthly, and you get good swag with it. So you might get some candles and some tea, and
cool.
They do socks and all sorts of lovely little things like blankets and that you can just to make it extra fun for you, curl up and read the book. Yeah, so that's an idea for you to maybe
Yeah,
take
that
a
sounds
look
like a
at
great
and
idea.
help you with your journey of reading and disappearing into another world.
Yeah, take some of the stress away from choosing your next book.
Exactly, because like it comes in and it's once a month and you get a new book, and they really do, like, there's a lot of new Asian fantasy coming out, and they're really supporting those authors, and they're really giving them an opportunity as well. And sometimes like they'll do extra special books, so you'll get ones with sprayed edges, and the art in them is absolutely incredible. So you really get like a special gift if you get a box. And I always say it's really good if you've got a reader friend or a reader daughter and son or whatever. If you order them like a year subscription to that, they will be your best friends for life, because it's just such an awesome experience every month to open that box and not know what you're going to get. Have you had the experience yet where you picked up a book and you thought, what on earth is this? Why did I pick it up? Oh my goodness, I can never read this again.
Yes. I do believe that every book I finished reading was worth reading. Otherwise, I wouldn't
That's
have
good,
finished it.
yeah.
But one book that kind of traumatized me last year was A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara.
Ah, yeah, I could see why that would be, yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely worth reading, and I think it's actually made me a better writer in some ways. But it
Yeah.
was very, very hard to read, and it took me a long time to recover from. It's a beautiful book,
Yeah,
but I really can't recommend it to anyone.
no, like there is some great books, and I mean, like I read Twilight when Twilight came out.
Mm.
And then, like last year, I was going through a really hard time with my health, and my husband brought me the book Edward, which follows the life of the vampire Edward. And I can't recommend that to people because it kind of just felt like she was desperately trying to keep the momentum of Twilight going, but it just didn't like flow very well. It didn't fit, and it was very kind of like stumbly and bumbly. And I felt so bad because I loved her other ones, and I was like really wanting to love this one, but I couldn't because it was a bit of a disaster, and I felt super guilty about like not loving it the way everyone else did. But I still feel guilty about that, folks. Like I do. And I think there's a lot of books that I end up feeling, that way about. So
Yeah,
moving into your writing life, the fun part, the part that everybody's been dying to hear. What drew you to write a contemporary romance? Like what made you want to choose that sort of setting for your story?
I feel like I didn't really set out to write a specific genre. I just had an idea and kind of let it take its course. So
I
I'm a
love
trans
that. Yeah.
man and my partner is a cis man. So I had a cute idea for a romance between a trans man and a cis man, which isn't something I've seen a lot of. A lot of the romance books I've found that star trans people are geared towards young adults. So I wanted to
Yeah.
write something that's meant for adults that stars a trans person.
That's really good, and I think it's such a good thing to hear of all these different books coming out that are inclusive of all these different types of lifestyles and our love and like who we love. And I think love is blind, and sometimes that's like the best message to send. And I think you're doing such a great job of that.
Thank you.
What made you choose particularly to like go into the LGBT community and like use that as your first book to launch your writing voice with? Was it just because your own experiences, or was there something more to it?
Well, I'm a bisexual, non binary trans man, so queer representation is obviously really important to me, and
Yeah,
everything I write is queer. Growing up, I really struggled to find quality fiction that featured queer characters.
of course. Yeah,
Like most of the queer books I could find as a teenager were like young adult romances about cis gay boys.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
actually remember thinking to myself as a teenager that if I ever wanted to be a published author, I would have to change the genders of my characters to make them straight, or no one would ever want to read it.
I
So
think 10 years ago that would have been the case, but I think now you can
yeah,
really
that was
just
10 years
write.
ago.
Yeah, like you can really write what you want to write, and you can really open your heart up and let your story come from there. And I am
Yeah,
so honored to have met you and to hear that you're doing just that. You know, you're not afraid. You're standing up and saying, "This is my story, and I'm representing a group of people that aren't being heard." And that to me is the most amazing thing and courage filled thing I've heard in years. So thank you. Thank you doesn't
thank you.
seem like enough, but thank you for doing that.
I'm really excited about the growing queer representation in fiction, and I'm really excited to be a part of it.
And I'm excited to be able to follow you and to give you this opportunity to use your voice and use your voice for good and to really put yourself out there. So, yeah.
Thank you.
What are your dreams for your books? Like, what do you dream of them achieving as the years go on?
I mean, my greatest dream right now is just to have them published, to be able to hold them in my hands and see them on the shelves among all the great authors that I admire.
And
And
I definitely
honestly,
think
one of
Pride
my,
Publishing will do that for you. They are one of the best in the business, so I think you're in really good hands with them.
yeah, it's been an amazing experience to be able to just hold my book in my hands because that was my biggest dream. I haven't been able to put it down. I've just been carrying it around with me.
That is honestly that's the way that all of us feel when we get our first one. I mean,
Yeah,
when I did Marie's World, I took it everywhere with me. I was so proud of it, and I still sometimes do take it with me some places, especially if I'm meeting people that I'm doing like a talk, and I need that kind of that reminder that I've done this and I've come so far, and I need just to be reminded of that I'm a good author and I have a good voice, and people want to hear from me, and I can just look at that book and think I can do this. So you'll never get to that point where you don't want to carry it around. Honestly, it stays with you forever, and it's the best reminder. It really is. What's been the biggest trial that you've had to overcome on this journey? What would you say is your biggest obstacle?
I guess kind of overcoming my own inferiority complex and self doubt, which is something I'm still working on. I still don't really feel like a real author, and I'm not sure if I ever will.
Oh, you will when you have your first fan that comes up and kind of hugs you and bursts into tears and says thank you.
That would be
That's the
amazing.
moment where you just feel like you've done something incredible. But you are an author, honey. You've already done it. You've already smashed that ceiling. So enjoy this. Enjoy the feeling of holding that book and knowing you did that. You have changed the world today by doing that book.
Thank
And
you.
I look forward to hearing all the beautiful stories you've got yet to tell. I really do.
Yeah, this interview process is definitely making me feel more like a real author. So thank you for that.
I'm glad I could help you on your journey. And as I said, I got emotional when you said yes, because to me, being able to work with like people from Pride Publishing and kind of giving that inclusive sort of environment and platform for everybody to open up on was my dream. And I just feel like you saying yes was like you guys accepting me and saying that you guys felt safe to come on and have these conversations and use the platform. And that means the world to me. Did you have a moment when you wrote your next story? Was it like, aha, I have the next story that I want to write? I know the next thing I'm going on to write. Or was it kind of like a slow, it crept up on you kind of style?
There's definitely kind of an aha moment, and it always happens at really random times. Like when I had my first idea for Made of Folded Paper, I was grocery shopping with my partner,
I
and I
love
just started
that.
telling him
Yeah.
about it in the aisle at the grocery store.
Oh, you at least have a more appropriate setting than me. Normally my ideas are like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I sit up like the Waking Dead. I just like sit up, almost like whoop, and I'm like, I've got it. I've got to write it down. And then Ian does like the whole soccer mom thing where he puts his arm out like a seatbelt, and he just like pushes me down and goes sleep, you know. But if I don't write it down, I forget it. So I've got like a notebook slash diary at the side of my bed, and I just like scribble stuff down so I don't forget it. And then in the morning, I'll go and write it out into sort of a bigger plot and break it down and start working on it. But he drives buses, so like he really has to sleep, so he doesn't like get sleepy driving the bus. So me sticking up, like doing the whole popping up thing in the middle of the night is not helpful for him. So I always feel guilty and bad for it. But yeah, I know what that aha moment is. I think you'll have a lot more to come, a lot more haha moments. I think
Yeah.
this is just the beginning. What are the would you say are the strains of writing the books that you are? Do you feel like you've got a strain on you as you're writing, like worries and things like that crop up on you while you're creating your work?
I mean, I definitely worry about what people think and how it will be perceived. I think homophobia and transphobia still make it difficult
Yeah,
to
of
find a
course.
publisher and an audience, although things have certainly gotten better in recent years. Like for Made of Folded Paper, I specifically sought out a queer romance publisher because I didn't know if anyone else would consider it. So
Yeah,
I think
that's
it narrows your
understandable.
options a bit writing in this genre. But things are definitely getting better, and I know major publishers are starting to publish a lot of queer fiction. So I have high hopes for the future.
I have an exceptional woman who's an amazing, amazing literacy agent, and I will put you in touch with her because she came to me the other day and she said, I really want a queer vampire series. One that gets you weak in the knees and just makes you just fall in love. And I said, well, if I meet someone, I'll pass that along. And honestly, I am probably going to butcher her name and she's never going to talk to me again because that's just how this goes with Crystal. Um, but Lauren, I'm going to attempt this. This is my moment of, well, it's going to go well or is it going to go bad? So Lauren Spieler, she really does advocate exceptionally well for everybody, but she has been a really big advocate for queer different queer stories, and she wants those different queer stories, and she wants to represent you guys and to give you guys a bigger platform and help
That's
you
great.
navigate this incredible world. So I will definitely put you in touch with her
I
when
did
this
actually
podcast is
sign with
over.
a literary agency earlier this year.
Oh wow, that's amazing!
Yeah, it's called Handspun
Congratulations!
Literary Agency.
Oh wow, that is honestly that's amazing. Here I am trying to help, offer help, but you're killing it. You're completely just absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
Wow.
I appreciate the recommendation though.
Well, maybe somebody else who's wanting to write queer and is scared to will be encouraged to hear about her and about her amazing abilities. What
Yeah,
techniques have you
and
used that you particularly loved using when you started writing and you started to put your book together?
I love sharing a book with a friend, like by the chapter as I write it,
Yeah,
especially if the friend is also a writer who's working on something, because then you
yeah,
can both get into get really into each other's stories and kind of motivate each other to keep going. And it makes
yeah.
it pretty much impossible to give up on the story you're writing if you've got a reader anxiously waiting for it.
Yeah, it kind of feels like a hidden motivation, a prod from like the other side kind of thing. Yeah, I love that because I've worked with critique groups and I've worked with editors, and at the moment I'm actually editing a novel chapter by chapter. So I feel that kind of constant need. Like, she's on holiday right now, so I've got like a little break. So I want to get like several chapters ahead and stuff. But yeah, like she's like my poke almost to get my stuff finished, and I'm doing actually a disabled romance, so I'm like pushing the barrier with this, and I'm not really sure if anyone's gonna want it either. So yeah, I feel you on that kind of nerve wracking parts of it. And trust me, all authors go through that too. We're always super scared and super nervous about are people gonna like it? Can I find a publisher that will want it? Can I what can I do with this? So, know that you're not alone. I think that's the
Yes.
biggest like thing that I can let you go away with today. Like, know that you're not alone. Have you done a technique in writing yet where you thought, what was I doing trying that? Like, that was a huge mistake. Why did I think that was a good idea?
Um, I've definitely learned that forcing myself to write when I'm not feeling motivated or inspired is never going to produce anything good. I know a lot of
Okay.
writers force themselves to write every day, and they say things like, you can edit a bad book, but not a blank page.
Yeah.
And I just find that that approach doesn't work for me at all. So when I'm going through a dry spell, I just need to wait it out and do other activities that inspire me, like reading and watching TV shows, going for
Yeah, of
walks,
course. Yeah.
and eventually things will start flowing again. But forcing it is just never a good idea.
No, I know that feeling myself. Like, if I get to that point where I have a great discipline and I do have a great routine, but if I'm just sitting there and I want to look at anything else but the page, then I know I need to go away and watch a show and do crafts. And I call it like, it's awful, the terminology I'm about to use, but it's like plumbing to me. Like, I've got a blockage and I need to like get the good old Drano in there, and that's, for me it'll be like sewing or diamond stitch, diamond painting or painting or doing something that's creative, but it's creative to clear out like the mess and the crap, and to let me find my
Yeah, kind of
way.
gross, but I think that's a good metaphor for it.
Yeah, I've never done a great metaphor that hasn't been gross. Could I just FYI? I don't know if it's my personality or what, but I've never had a metaphor that's like doesn't make people go ugh, you know.
Those
Um,
are the metaphors that stick with you, though.
yeah, I think it's also part of my Scottishness, because like we like gross jokes and stuff. So I think that's maybe where that's rubbing off on. So let's talk a little bit about your life. And this is where readers really can connect to you, because they kind of feel like you're not this mythical person who's got servants cleaning your house and buying your food, and like you put your choices on one leg at a time, just like all the rest of us. So this is just a good way of like reminding people that we're human too, and that we have stresses and strains and stuff. What is the first thing you do when you want to de-stress from editing and writing? Where do you go?
I always try to get some exercise every day. So whenever it's nice enough outside, I'll go for long walks in my neighborhood and listen to music. I live in Minnesota, so there's only like a few months out of the year that I can do that.
I was gonna say, you have the same trouble as me with the weather.
Yeah, the weather is beautiful right now, though. We're caught in that perfect time of year, so
Oh,
I'll
that's
go for long
lovely.
walks every day. And it really helps me
We're
clear my head, and sometimes I end up solving problems or coming up with
Yeah,
ideas while I'm doing that.
because you probably get like the closest to the Scottish weather than anyone in the U.S. Like,
Yeah,
you get the
probably.
rain and the snow and the thunderstorms, and you get it. Your weather beaten like the rest of us are over
Yes, our
here.
summers are very hot and muggy, though.
So not a fan of the summers then,
I do like summer, but spring and fall are the perfect times of year where you can actually go outside.
and not melt into a big puddle.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I
or
I
freeze.
understand that. What hobbies do you enjoy outside of riding, and what ones do you wish you had more time that you could explore and try?
Aside from reading, I really like outdoor activities like hiking, biking, hammocking, and swimming.
Ooh,
I find
okay.
nature to be like really
Yeah.
healing and inspiring, so I'm definitely at my happiest outside. I'd like to get more adventurous this summer and try to do some camping or kayaking or something like that.
Oh, I love
And
kayaking, yeah.
yeah, and I'm also a huge nerd, so I'm also into anime and cosplay and tabletop gaming and going to conventions, stuff like that.
I love that too. Funny enough, I am a League of Legend gamer, so I game. I will not tell you what my handle is because I don't want stalked on League. But I'm not very good at League, actually, to be honest with you. You don't want me on your team. But
I have not played it, but I was a big fan of Arcane.
yeah, to be honest with you, it is an amazing place, and it's it's where I go when I want friendship and I feel very lonely because, like, I've never been really away from Ian for any length of time, but now that he drives buses, he's away for like most of the day, and you can get lonely as a writer if there's not somebody in the house to talk to, and so yeah, I'll go on League, and I've got some great friends. I've got Val, who's one of my most amazing friends. She herself kind of keeps me right, and she reminds me of when I'm being dumb or when I'm kind of not getting something. And then I've got Jack, who absolutely kind of just lifts my mood and stuff, and I feel a sense of weird sort of family on there. It's like, I've been friends with some of these people for 8, 9 years, and no matter what I'm going through, they're always there, and I love that. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
come join us on League and have some fun. And I can't guarantee that you won't get sucked into the black hole of League.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of. I have a very obsessive personality, so I feel like it would just consume my life.
It actually, I find it doesn't. Like, I feel like it's a great reward. See, if I've done like X amount of writing during the day, I can go on and like catch Jack and Fallon. I'll say, yeah, do you want a game? Or like, to get me going in the morning, it's good to just go on and have a game with them and like have a laugh and talk to them, and it gets my juices flowing, and it kind of just puts me at ease for the day. I feel resourceful after that, like especially if I've had a bad match and I like lose. But um they're pretty good at like making me win, and a lot of the times they'll say things like stop doing that, like if I'm not like farming or playing it very well. So but yeah, no, come join us. If you enjoyed the series, you'll definitely have the opportunity to enjoy the game. So yeah.
Yeah, it was a great series.
What would you, if you could be one thing, anything in the world, and you could do one thing for an entire day, what would it be and why?
This answer would probably change for me on a day-to-day basis, but right now I'm thinking I'd really like to go whale watching.
Oh,
I live in the
yeah.
Midwest, so I don't get to see the ocean very often, so I guess I kind of romanticize it. And I'm
Trust
really
me, it's
like
not that fun to live
fascinated
next
and
to it.
terrified of ocean creatures, especially whales. And I've never gotten to see one in real life, so I think that would be really
Well,
cool.
I'll
Go whale
share a
watching.
funny story with you. I grew up with ocean no matter where I went. Literally, where no matter where I went in the island, it was like it
Right.
stalked you. You could see it. You could hear it. Um, and one day I was swimming with my friend, and seals decided that we looked like good playmates. And I had to swim very fast back to shore because a seal took a fancy to my foot and kept nibbling at my toes and my foot. And
That's
it was
adorable.
wanting to play, but I was scared it would be thinking I could be a future mate or something. So I was like just speed rolling through. And another one of my friends, she does a lot of like ocean swimming, and there was one day she was swimming across like this little cove, and this big white whale just sort of like orca, I think they called it, was like rolled right past her, but she had to like
Oh my
stop in
gosh.
case it thought that she was food, and then she just had to like really slowly swim. and it swam with her for a little while as if to say, "Are you food? I'm not sure." And then she got to like dry land, and everyone was so relieved because we literally thought she was going to get eaten, because it had come in for the seals, because we have a lot of seals where I grew up. And
Yeah,
yeah, so we were a bit nerve wracked, but yeah, I grew up with orcas all around my islands, and
that's
seals and
amazing.
otters. And otters are a little bit vicious. They will bite you. Like, you could be hanging out your washing and they run up and they just start snapping at you because they consider you like too close to where they're nesting or whatever. So I got chased a lot by otters and like that kind of thing. In fact, there's an otter that visits my parents' house because the previous owner used to feed it fish. They used to hang a fish on the door of the shed. So that every so often this otter comes up as if to say, "Where's my fish? That's your tax." And my dad's like, "Go away." He's not a fan. He's a bit scared of them. So yeah, that's the stories for you anyway. Maybe I've just increased your love of the ocean, but it's beautiful, but not always friendly.
I'm definitely jealous of you getting to live on an island. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, and Shetland, has some of the most beautiful sights. We get the northern lights. From May to September, the sun never sets. But it also means we
It's
have the
amazing.
longest, darkest winters. Like, we get a few hours of sunlight a day, and it's very dark, and it's very suffocating a little bit. Um,
Yeah, I can
but yeah,
imagine.
it makes the summer makes up for it in a way. So yeah, you should if you ever get the chance, you should check it out for sure.
I would love to. I would love to visit Scotland in general.
And we have a lot of history of nothing else. And we're very, very welcoming and friendly on the mainland of Scotland, at least. And we have like a huge, just amazing places for you to go and see and visit and explore.
You have the best accents too.
I wouldn't go that far, but yeah, some of us do. Some people have really thick accents that even I can't understand, and I've lived my entire life here, so.
Well, I really like your accent.
Oh, thank you. This is my podcast accent. If you actually heard like my Scottish, it's like very thick and fast. And this is my Cali. They call it my Cali accent because I had a lot of American friends who sort of taught me how to speak slower and better. So yeah. So for me, I've got idiopathic rheumatoid arthritis, and it really makes me slow down and appreciate the day and smell the roses and just you know be a part of the world. What would you say kind of makes you slow down and appreciate the day and the roses and everything around you?
That's interesting because I also have rheumatoid arthritis.
See? Connecting
Yeah.
with everyone. Yeah.
I was actually diagnosed when I was like 17, so I've had it for quite a while.
Yeah, it's very difficult, and I think especially when you get it as a teenager because you've kind of had that life where you've not had it before, and then all of a sudden your life's changing, and it's very difficult. Whereas I got it at 2.5 years old, so I've never known life
Um,
without it. And I think I always was living in hope I'd grow out of it, but some types you can, and I unfortunately I have the type that you can't. And I've had joint replacements. I just had my TMI joints done, so it's very difficult. And I think people with these sort of conditions, you almost have to learn how to live with it. And
mhm.
I've had to learn how to balance it. I'm one of these people that want to do like 101 things a day and just go with it and just get on with it. But I have times where I suddenly have to go to hospital for like a week or a month or whatever. And I have to kind of learn to slow down and stop and just give my body a chance to heal and stuff. So uh, if you ever
Yeah.
need advice on that, you know where I am. And I've known all the medications and all the trials and stuff like that. So please feel free to reach out anytime that you just want a bit of advice or you just don't want to feel, because arthritis makes you feel very lonely because there's not a lot of young people that have it. Um,
Right.
I think everybody associates arthritis and arthritic condition with elderly people and really old people, but it is
Hmm.
affecting more and more younger people, and I would think I'd like to know why that is. Like I mean, for me, it was diphtheria that started mine. Do they have any idea why yours started?
No, but I've definitely had people throughout my life tell me, not believe me that I have arthritis, or tell me that I'm too young, or
Yeah,
just in general
it's
assume that I'm able bodied because I'm young.
yeah, and
So that's kind of
it's not
frustrating.
always the case. No, I know it's very difficult when you have an invisible disease, and that's what I call it. It's like our invisible friend that never goes away. I named mine. Funnily enough, if you name your condition, it makes it easier for you to deal with it because when you're having a bad day, you can almost shout at it and tell it
What did you
off,
name
you know,
yours?
like. So I named mine Archie because it was a mixture of the letters of the hospital I lived at. And it was also like, because I always felt like he was like the male side of me that gave me that fire and that determination and that kind of like drive. And I know I'm never ever going to be fully alone because he's with me and it's a part of me, but I get very annoyed at him. He gets shouted at a lot, to be honest. I'm
You
like,
should write a
damn
book
you, what are
about
you
this.
talking that for today? I wanted to go do something, you know, so um, it can make it more a light-hearted way of dealing with the condition. And it can make it feel less frustrating for you. So, yeah, feel free to name yours and almost like if you can picture it in your mind as a person that's just like super glued into you, then you can kind of have you can make it feel less like a monster and more like a part of yourself. It's a part of your
Yeah, I'll think
personality,
about
part of
that.
who you are. Yeah.
I've been pretty much in remission for the past couple of years. So,
Oh wow, that's amazing. So you found a system
yeah.
that works for you then.
Yes, I'm lucky to have a good doctor.
Yeah, I mean, I had a bad doctor when I was in my teens, and he like really messed me up. And then I got this doctor here in Glasgow, who's like one of the leading arthritic doctors in Scotland. In fact, he is the leading doctor in arthritic care in Scotland, and yeah, he's got me back to a normal life. He got me back working, and he's made me stable enough to start trying for a family. And like these are
That's
things I
great.
never thought I could do because of the way I grew up with it. And he's very much given me my life back. And I honestly, I swear by Dr. Maddock, and I hope that so many other people out there give him an opportunity because he literally did. He turned my life around, and he's really good at understanding that people are not sensitive and understanding to invisible disease or know how to treat it. And he's educating people better now to deal with the mental side of it rather than just the physical because it is very taxing. It's very draining.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's your favorite place to curl up during the day? Is it like a garden, a cafe? Do you have a reader's nook that you go to? Where do you just like to kind of cozy up with a book?
Definitely my backyard. It's kind of a paradise. My partner is really into gardening, so he's
Oh,
working
that's
on some
great.
beautiful gardens back there. And we
Yeah.
also have a bee box, so there's lots of bees
Ooh.
buzzing around. There's
Saving the
also,
bees is good. Yep. Saving the bees is
yes,
good.
there's
We
also a
have a
lot of
beautiful
birds,
area for that
squirrels,
too.
and rabbits, and we have friendly neighbors who wander through the yard sometimes. And
That's
we recently got a
lovely.
really cute patio set, so that's where I do most of my work and writing.
Yeah, no, that sounds amazing. Because for me, I can't sit out in the garden at the moment because I'm on like an antibiotic regime. And I miss it so much because I want to just curl up in the garden on a nice little sofa set with my book and a little blankie. And like, I know I shouldn't fall asleep, but sometimes I do fall asleep because that's the condition. But I miss that space. I used to have a big conservatory and I liked sitting in there and it was always really really hot in the summer but it was like freezing in the winter but it was still like my space to go to and so yeah, that's my dream for the future is to have a beautiful place that I can read and I can write and I can feel safe to sit in and just enjoy. So yeah,
Yeah, I've lived
that's
in
amazing.
apartments for most of my adult life, so I haven't had a backyard for a really long time. I recently moved into a house, so
Wow,
very
look at
excited about
you.
the backyard.
Yeah, that's amazing. It really, really is. So now on to our word game, which everybody usually freaks out over because it's a very difficult thing. Um, but it's just designed to be fun and introduce people to new books or new ideas or stories and memories that we have. And it continues that route to make us feel fun, like approachable and for us to have really good friends. So your first word is cedarwood, which is a type of tree, and it's also a type of oil that's really good for arthritic people.
Yes, so that reminds me of the Cedarwood Pride series by Megan Slayer,
Oh,
which I
okay.
haven't actually read yet, but I've seen it many times because it's published by Pride Publishing. So,
Is that on your TBR?
what was that?
Is that on your to read list?
Oh, yes, for sure.
Yeah, no, I know that feeling. I have a lot of those. What about lavender?
That reminds me of a book called Lavender House.
Oh, okay.
I think the author is Lev A.C. Rosen, and it's a
Wow.
queer. It might be a queer romance. I haven't read it yet. But,
Sounds nice. I like it. What about toffee apples?
so there's a book called Toffee Apple Must Do Better in Love by an author named Muddy Frank, and I think it's kind of a queer comedy romance.
I like a good bit of comedy, so that's one to look out for, guys. You know? What about candy floss?
There's a book called Candy Floss Pink by Cameron James, which is
Ooh,
also queer, I believe.
I liking these. I'm liking these a lot. So, I know these are the words where you've kind of gotten stuck on, but we'll go for them anyway. So even if it's just like the first word that comes to your mind, just go with it and see what happens. What about ice cream cakes?
I, I gotta say, I honestly can't think of anything.
That's okay. That's fine. Don't worry about it. Ice cream floats, like the juice, and then you put like the ice cream in it, and it's like ice cream floating in juice.
Yes. Yeah.
Stuck with that one?
I'm sorry. I just really can't think of
Oh no, it's
any books
fine.
for these
Do
ones.
not worry about it, honey. Honestly, don't worry about it. Last and not least was ice cream shops.
Yeah.
Nope.
Again, I got nothing.
Well, actually, funnily enough, did you figure out what the theme of the word game was for you?
Food.
So my idea was almost like you sitting in a wild back garden with ice cream treats that your partner had made you, writing and reading books and just living your best life in a beautiful world. So that's where I came up with that idea, because as soon as I saw your picture and I read about you, I was like, I know exactly what game words to give them like that almost feel of being in that garden and in that beautiful, beautiful space. So that was my plan. Um, but yeah, so honestly, it's been such an honor having you here today. And we really would like to invite you back and invite all of Pride Publishing to join us. And, if when your next book's ready to come out, please email me and I'll book you in and we'll get you on the show and we'll have some fun. Does that sound like an
Absolutely.
idea?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
It's been a true honor. So next week, guys, we are going to have another author coming on. She's published 42 books and she's got more upcoming, and she is going to be incredibly entertaining. So you are not going to want to miss next week, and I shall see you all again soon.